Hello and welcome to this talk on Popper and Campbell's Evolutionary Epistemology and its evolution in Csikszentmihalyi's systems model of creativity. This is a 15-minute paper for the 5th International Zoom-based conference on the thought of Karl Popper, run by Jeremy Schumer. And this is the key point of this talk. Popper and Campbell's evolutionary epistemology is the same model as Csikszentmihalyi's systems model of creativity, which might come as a pleasant surprise to some Popper scholars to see that Popper and Campbell's work continues under a different name. The key quote of this talk is that it can be seen, Popper's three worlds, ideas, processes, and products, and evolutionary epistemology or natural selection model of biocultural creativity equates to Csikszentmihalyi's 1988-2014 domain person field interaction systems model of creativity. That was a quote from a 2016 paper of mine, a book chapter that was also in the appendix of my 2016 PhD. And that book is called Creative Technologies for Multidisciplinary Applications. And in fact, the evolutionary culturology meta science contained therein applies to all domains and disciplines, not just multiple, but all 50,000 plus domains in culture. Next. So that's our key quote, that this talk expands out. So there's my bio in brief and 3 recent books of mine: Elements of Evolutionary Culturology, PH3, a writing manual, and The Ethicizer, written by an artificially intelligent computer program I created called The Ethicizer. And here is my multimedia show reel, a bit more of my background in the creative industries. So a list of past works, books, films, video games, television, novels, plays, etc. Documentaries, feature films, other feature films, short films. I've also acted in over 100 short films and 2 feature films, conferences, augmented reality game systems, more video games I worked on, software I developed, more television, more novels, novellas, screenwriting, textbooks, transmedia books, plays, short stories, science fiction work, writing manuals, poems, jokes, music, albums, cartoons and comics I worked on, paintings, photographs, conferences, installation artworks, a PhD, promotional videos, and things like the Ethicizer, and various other activities like firefighting, and being a meta scientist or evolutionary culturologist. Anyway, my show reel has more detail if my background is of interest in the creative industries. Next. So this book by Davies and Sig Thorson, 2013, lists approximately 13 of the creative industries. Is a bit of a misnomer because you can be creative or create something new, useful and surprising in any industry, not specifically just those, but that's the name that it's given, the creative industries. Science is, of course, just as creative. If you see Dean Keith Simonton's book, Creativity in Science, 2004. Next. This is an overview of this 15-minute talk. I'll talk about the standard definitions of creativity, the 2-part and 3-part definitions, Popper and Campbell's evolutionary epistemology, Csikszentmihalyi's systems model of creativity, which is the same model as evolutionary epistemology. Their integration, those two, or that same model, in the meta science of evolutionary culturology and practical scientific and industrial applications of same. Next. And before that, I'll define the domain of creativity science. And my past, at least I do that in the paper that's attached to this talk at the Popper conference. My past chapters on this include those 5 book chapters in over 5 years, including the Encyclopedia of Information Science and Technology and the Encyclopedia of Creativity. And of course, expanded to full book length in 2022 in the book Elements of Evolutionary Culturology. And more detail on my ORCID ID. So, the standard definition of creativity is that you need an idea, process, or product that is new, useful, and surprising. So if it's not all 3 of those things at once, as judged by the field for that domain in culture, it's probably not creative. More information on some of those articles there. So a creative unit of culture, be it an idea, process, or product, or 2 or all 3 of those things at once, has to be new, useful, and surprising, as judged by the experts in the field for that domain in culture. And see my article in the Encyclopedia of Creativity for more detail. And the domain of creativity science dates back to 1950 with J.P. Guilford's speech to the American Psychological Association. More about that in the paper attached to this talk. Meantime, Popper and D.T. Campbell's Evolutionary Epistemology. Here's a good quote that essentially summarizes it. Conjectures and refutations. Next. And see also Campbell's Evolutionary Epistemology chapter in the 1974 Schilp volume on the philosophy of Karl Popper. So moving on to Csikszentmihalyi's socio-cultural systems model of creativity. In 1988, that book there was published, Conceptions of Giftedness, within which was this landmark diagram of the systems model of creativity. There's Csikszentmihalyi there. And now let's take a quick look at the biological evolution of the whale, just to look at biological evolution for a moment. Showing change over time of a species or organism. Moby Dick is a great book, by the way, if you haven't read it. So there we see gradual change over time of organisms. So that was biological evolution, or one example thereof. Now let's look at cultural evolution. Here is my collection of diagrams that shows some of the cultural evolution or change over time of the systems model of creativity. In 2018, now with added AI, thanks to computational creativity. And here's two of my variations of the model: creative practice theory and evolutionary culturology's fractal systems meta-model of biocultural creativity. There's a blog page there where you can read more about all that. And now let's look at the integration of the systems model of creativity, or evolutionary epistemology, in evolutionary culturology. So this is a model called the fractal systems meta-model of biocultural evolutionary creativity. More about that in the book Elements of Ev Cult. But again, showing three interlinked systems: a domain and an agent or person or individual or even AI or robot, and a field for a domain in culture, of which, as I say, there are at least 50,000 domains in culture. And this is another variation of that same model. Up the top, that square grid, we have the ideas, mental processes, physical processes, and products of a given domain. And bottom right, we have an agent or person or group or robot or individual, and bottom left, the field for that domain, which is made up of agents. Next, again, that's in Elements of Ev Cult 2022. And there is also a video, YouTube video online giving a demonstration of that model. I wanted to make it a bit more obvious with 3D objects, so this was just made in SketchUp and shows the same model as a 3D model and as a pinball machine model, oddly, so that the balls are units of culture, ideas, processes, or products. And we can scientifically and empirically measure those. There we see units of culture moving from the domain to the memory of an individual, and it can then pass into their imagination and be recombined with other ideas, processes, or products. Then it moves to their judgment system in their mind if they decide it's good enough to show the field, and then the unit of culture may be presented to the field, upon which point they will also judge it and decide whether it enters canon or goes to archive in the domain for that specific domain of culture, whether it's science or music or novels, what have you. And up top we see the canon is divided into 7 categories of canon, ranging from classic to viral to avant-garde to popular to cult status, etc. Whereas archive are the units of culture that are rejected or ignored or even deleted sometimes. At any rate, there's a 25-minute video about that online. The link is there below if anyone wants to go deep and look at a pinball machine metaphor for the same model. Next. So the Evolutionary Culturology PhD in 2016 included that book chapter, as I say, in Creative Technologies for Multidisciplinary Applications, and that has been expanded to Elements of EvCult. More detail there. And what is EvCult? Well, there are sciences, individual sciences down at the smaller bottom level, such as physics, chemistry, biology. Above that are meta-sciences, such as systems science or information science or cultural evolution or creativity science. Above that is evolutionary culturology, which integrates all of those beneath it. So it's not a science, it's not a meta science, it's not a science, and it's not a second level meta science. It is a third level of abstraction, which is a meta science, and gives the units, scale levels, 3 laws, and evolutionary algorithms for all culture or all knowledge, including sciences, social sciences, and the arts, humanities, and engineering, maths, everything. Next. So there's that book. Here's one model from the book showing all the scale levels of the fractal holon parton, from quarks to atoms to people to planets, all the way up to multiverses. As the 3 laws of fractal holon partons that all of those units obey, whether it be in physics, chemistry, biology, psychology, sociology, anthropology, etc. And there is consilience, the unity of knowledge, as per E.O. Wilson's 1988 book. 1 set of units, scale levels, 3 laws and mechanisms to rule them all, as they say in Tolkien. Next. So there's that book. There's another model using Popper's 3 worlds theory. You can divide culture into 4 different categories: ideas, mental processes, physical processes, and products, which is a helpful categorizing tool, such as a Linnaean taxonomy in biology. And there's a tree of culture from the book Elements of EvCult, showing when each discipline had its first international conference, showing evolution of science and knowledge over time. Next. There is a 3-hour talk on Appeal's webinar series, more about all of this if of interest. As for practical applications of evolutionary epistemology, the systems model of creativity, and evolutionary culturology, this book here shows many PhDs that have been done studying various creative industries at the Newcastle School of Creativity, which uses Csikszentmihalyi and Bourdieu combined a great deal as their background theory, our background theory, I should say. Another practical application, I created an artificial writer program that comes up with movie pitches, movie and transmedia story ideas in 2017 as an extension of my EvCult Storyality PhD work. So people use that to come up with new ideas for films, games, TV, etc. It uses the BVSR, Evolutionary Epistemology algorithm, among others. There's more on that blog post about that. You can download the program. It's a free Excel spreadsheet with a macro in it. Next. There is also, yes, this refers to creativity science. There is a big list of major works in the domain of creativity science since 1950 on that blog post below there on the EvCult website, creativity science texts. Next. Here's one other application showing how units of culture move through different phase states and how they overlap with Popper's World 1, World 2 and World 3. In EvCult, there is an extra world, 2B, of physical processes such as robots and machines doing things. Anyway, useful categorical tool, taxonomy. Next. Here's another view of that when you have writers transmitting a message in a book, say, and a reader reading the book or watching a movie or listening to a song, any form of communication. And likewise, another model. So we end up with 4 categories of discrete units of culture. It's one of the 100 or so tools of evolutionary culturology. Next. And as I say in the paper attached to this talk, further reading, if you want to see how Campbell and Popper's evolutionary epistemology evolved into Csikszentmihalyi's systems model of creativity. Csikszentmihalyi's dad, Alfred, and Popper used to go for mountain climbing walks and discuss things. So in a way, it's no surprise that Csikszentmihalyi picked up a lot of Popper's ideas and carried them on in his groundbreaking work. Csikszentmihalyi also won a Thinker of the Year award in the year 2000, and I commend all his work to you if you're looking to understand creativity science. And so there's a few books to, and in that specific order, to see how evolutionary epistemology evolved into the socio-cultural systems model of creativity, and then of course into evolutionary culturology. And some extra books there from the Newcastle School of Creativity. Next. Yes, this is a foreword by Mike Csikszentmihalyi in that book there, Educating for Creativity in Higher Education. Next. So, as I say, my key point is that evolutionary epistemology is the same model as the systems model of creativity. So any Popper scholars who are worried that people abandon Popper and Campbell, take a look at Csikszentmihalyi's work and the systems model, and you'll see it's still going strong, just under a different name. Next. Thank you very much.